All right, what you need before you can start using the underglazes / colored slips onto your large bowl, you can also use your practice bowl, is you need your printed image, or you need just your drawing onto your bowl. So I thought I would make this more real for some of you, and I printed out what I wanted to do, which was dragonflies. So I simplified an image of a dragonfly. There's nothing real about these. So this is what I have. And the reason for that is to try to, say if I were to have a dragonfly actual photograph and try to transfer that image onto here, the details would be so small and so hard to transfer on, and you'll see when I start painting that it wouldn't look right. So it would end up being like little blobs of color anyway. So that said, I simplified a dragonfly and I cut them out so that there was just like about 1/2 inch to sometimes 1 inch around the edges. And the reason for that, you'll see, I have to get my tracing paper. These are kind of spent for my other demonstrations. I have this, it's graphite paper. There's graphite on one side and just the other side is just plain. So you have to make sure the graphite, the darker side, touches your bowl. So you want to have your image, and I'm actually going to cut this a little bit more. So the graphite paper is going to transfer your image, and you don't want to have too big of a piece because I'm going to show you how to do registration marks. So if you have to lift it for whatever reason, or let's say it falls out of your hand while you're doing this, that you know how to put it back. So I'm going to cut this down to size and make sure that the dark side is, let's see where I can put another one. I'll put another one right here. Actually, I'm going to take my smaller one. So in talking with some of you about your symbols, I had to remind you that your symbol as a statement on your bowl needs to be significant enough to say, okay, the emphasis is the dragonfly. So I know the symbolism on this bowl is a dragonfly, and that's what I'm doing here. They should be large. You do not have to have 7 of them on your bowl, whatever it is that your symbol is, but it should be the focal point, the emphasis. That's a term in the principles of design that says to the viewer, this is what I want you to notice. So in mine, it's dragonflies. For you, it could be something different. So I'm going to put the dark side down, and a registration mark is just me putting a line so that if I have to line it back up, I know if I line up these 2 lines, I'll get my dragonfly back. But I want to make sure I just hold it and take a soft pencil, not a sharp one, just soft, and I'm going to go over the image, the printed image. So there's no, oh, I don't know how to draw dragonflies. There's no worry about getting it just right. This particular dragonfly is kind of fanciful. It's kind of a tribal looking dragonfly. And so I'm just going to make sure I copy all that I want to. And if I lifted this up and forgot, oh shoot, I forgot one of the wings, that's where also the registration marks are going to help. Now, this graphite paper is very messy. Some of you might be noticing from your vantage point that I have like dirt marks here and there on my bowl. It's going to all burn away. So all this extra or unwanted graphite is not going to bother me at all. It will burn away, and all you're going to see is the beautiful color that I leave behind. All right, so I just traced it very quickly with a pencil. Now I can lift it off, and there it is. So I'm just going to show this for the camera, and then this one I already have gone over with the black underglaze, which you've used for your vases, and this one I used blue. Now, it doesn't look like much now. This blue looks kind of dull and chalky. When it fires into the piece, it's going to have another velvety look, very similar to your vases with the black or the white, depending on you chose. So it feels like after it's fired, like it's really part of the vase. Or in this case, it's going to feel like part of the bowl. The reason for that is because it has a clay body in it with pigments. That's why we could use it on raw clay, on underfired greenware clay. Or unfired, excuse me, greenware clay. So this is greenware. It's never been fired, and it's actually still in the leather hard stage, but it's in the hard leather hard stage. So if your piece, if your bowl, I keep wanting to say vase, if your bowl happens to get bone dry, it's not all lost. You can still use the colored slips / underglazes on bone dry. It's just that it soaks in differently, and you have to make sure, you have to be careful to make sure you layer it enough so that it doesn't look washed out. And that's what I found. That's just my experience, and they're really meant for leather hard. So, okay, so now I've got my transfer on, and I'm ready to use the underglazes. Now, it is meant for these underglazes, and here's one of the black you were using for the vase. They're meant for small areas in this case. We don't, if I was in my own studio and I bought this commercial jar of black underglaze and I wanted to put it all over like a piece of my work, you know, that's on me. But unfortunately, we don't, for budget reasons, we only use it for decorative purposes because of the expense of it all. So that's why it's in these small containers. So I'm going to take this one because this one is pretty dried out. It's a pink. And what you see is what you get. Just like with the black and the white, it fires true to the color. The only difference is once you put clear on it, and here's an example here. This is all the underglazes. These dragonflies have a few mixed colors in them, but once you put the clear on them, then they look vibrant and rich. But at least you can see the color. Unlike regular glazes, where you can have something that looks red out of the bottle and it fires green. This is not the case. So I have these little brushes here in this container for you guys to use, and they're very fine. So I have a few of them. My favorite are these blue-handled brushes because they really do have fine edges on them. And the fact that this is dried out, no big deal. They're just like watercolors. You could rehydrate them by just adding the water into the bowl, just add a little bit so it's mushy. Or you can even just add the water to your brush and stir up the pigment. So it should not be globby or thick so that it's chunky when you put it on your piece. And actually, I'll do a little of this on there. I don't want to have too many colors on my bowl because that'll look too busy. I don't want it to look childlike. I want it to look more sophisticated. But I'm going to take the areas that I didn't do yet, and you may just put a little pink in here in the wing. Now I'm going to do 3 coats of this because I want it to be opaque. If you do 1 coat, that's fine. But just be aware, it's going to have a very transparent look. You're going to be able to see through it. And it'll look a little more faded once you put the clear on. So I'm just doing this for the camera here, and I'll hold it up. And I'm just coloring it in. So I put the transfer on, and then I'm kind of treating it like a paint by numbers or a coloring paint area. And I have all this left to do. So these are what I was showing yesterday's class, how to transfer the designs. I still have to do those. And this is one that I did in black, and I actually had, for this particular dragonfly, I just outlined this black cutout, and then I just went ahead and added some of the veins that naturally happen in dragonflies. And then I also started my decorative areas around the top. Dragonflies, you find them around water, you find them in your backyard, so natural, kind of organic background for me would make sense for a design. You could do what makes sense for you. So once I'm done doing small details of my symbols, of my patterns, then I have to let it get bone dry and then put it on the cart so that it could get fired. Once it's fired, I'm going to choose a color that coincides with what I did for the dragonflies on the inside, and the outside I'm just going to clear so that it shows off this. If I try to do a little color in here, or if I try to so carefully go all around the dragonflies on this bowl, I'd probably drive myself crazy, and it probably would come out a little fuzzy because I can only get so close without touching them with those glazes, and those, the regular gloss glazes, they move, they flow, some more than others, so I don't want to take that chance. So that's what's going to happen here. I did add a slide, slide 6, now is the processes of this, and I'm also going to add this video. So I have brushes for you to use here on the demonstration table. The graphite paper, obviously this is probably going to be bigger than any of you need. Just cut it down to the size you need. And at this point too, if you haven't already printed out your symbols, if you're not somebody who draws, this is what you're going to do, then you need to do that. And I did a couple of sizes because I wasn't sure. The same thing with these kind of tribal looking dragonflies. I did a couple of different sizes so that I could see what I liked. It should not be so small that I don't know what the emphasis is on. Now what can be small, and I did print out some really cool ideas. I did look up like Pueblo and Navajo patterns, and I thought, well, I could either mimic these or literally just trace them. I could cut them out, use the transfer paper, and there's no guessing on my part, and I could just kind of place them randomly around. They're small, and I would still show off my dragonflies. And then I found these. These were just interesting geometric shapes, and if you'd like to borrow anything that I've already printed, you certainly may, because again, I could cut these out individually and then transfer them on with the graphite paper. You do not need to know how to draw anything, not your lines, not your symbols. So there's no stress about that. So I just